friends, it's me, the Ebony Otaku, the well-rounded nerd. We are back for another Stocking Your Asian Pantry video. Today, I want to turn my attention to fermented foods. So we've done sauces, and we've talked about dry goods you might need. Fermented is its own special category. As I've mentioned before, I've got a couple of digestive issues, so finding foods that work well with some of my restrictions, it can be a little difficult. One of the things that drew me to a lot of Asian cuisine, especially Korean food, was the abundance of fermented foods. Now, I know what you're saying. Ebony Otaku, what does fermented mean? Are you talking about rotten food? No. Fermentation is a chemical process by which it changes the properties into a self-preservation using good bacteria for the food. That's my layman's explanation. You've probably had fermented food. Sauerkraut? Had a sauerkraut? Pickles? Wine? You have wine? Fermentation. It's a way of preserving food, but it also changes the chemical properties of the food as well. What I have found for me is that eating things that are fermented or have fermented properties makes it easier to digest, and it has good bacteria in it, and that good bacteria has been really good for my health. And a lot of people report the same things. Now, I'm no doctor. Consult your doctor, okay? Who's not a physician of any kind is me, okay? Disclaimer. But do I recommend these kinds of foods? I mean, yeah, give it a try. Now, some of these are prepared foods that take a minute to make if you choose to make them on your own. Others you can buy already prepared, and we're going to talk through them all. Now, I'm going to talk through the fermented foods that I use the most. One of the main ingredients in a lot of Korean cooking, especially if you are going for something a little spicy, making a marinade, really good to add to soup stock, this one. Gochujang, hot pepper paste. Delicious. For one thing. And what I love about this is it's not necessarily that kind of spicy just for the sake of being spicy. It's delicious. It has this sweet hint to it. And also it's not overpoweringly hot. It's a good hot. It's a nice burn. Plus on the back of the box, there's a little thermometer and it tells you how hot it is. So if you're not trying to blow the roof off the top of your mouth, don't get the one where the little thermometer goes all the way up. Get one in the middle or get one a little bit lower. If you eat at a lot of Korean restaurants, they will ask you how spicy you want your food. Because in a lot of Korean cooking, you can make individual pot meals in stone bowls, and then you add the gochugaru, hot pepper powder, or gochujang as needed to get the spiciness level that you want. One of my favorite dishes is spicy doeji bulgogi, which is pork bulgogi, and it is marinated with gochugaru and gochujang. It gives it this brilliant red color, and it also gives it that nice fermented flavor that you just can't get any other way. So that's the first fermented food. Now, keeping in the Korean lane for a little while, here's another that is a must. Soybean paste. Don't ask me the Korean name for this because it has completely left my brain in this moment. But soybean paste is delicious. Its cousin in Japan is miso, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. This packs an umami punch, you sparingly. I've had this tub for a while. It's fermented, so it lasts a good bit. But this much goes a long way. I use it in flavoring soups. I've tried it in a couple of marinades with varying levels of success. There are like ramen recipes or shin ramyun recipes where I'll add a little bit of this. Vegetable soups, this works really well in. It's very salty to taste. It's not spicy at all. It's a very mild flavor. Very mild in terms of heat, but it's intense. A little bit goes a long way. I love this stuff. Can you make this at home? Yeah, don't. It's a process. If you want to see what the process is, go find Manchi's YouTube channel. She is literally the greatest of all time with Korean cooking on YouTube. I believe she did an episode where she made this stuff. Good for her. It was very interesting. I loved learning the process, but who does not make stuff like that is me. I will just go to the Asian market and buy it prepackaged. The next two are not so much individual ingredients, but a combination of ingredients that produce something really great. And they can be used in many different ways. And I am talking about the Korean favorite, kimchi. This is homemade kimchi. I made it. It is well fermented. My fermentation process is after I finish making this. It sits out on my countertop at room temperature for usually at this time of year. It's February right now. At this time of year, it would have to sit out for a couple of days to get good bubbles in there and let me know. And when I smell that good sour kimchi smell, then I know it's ready. And then it goes in the fridge until I'm ready to eat it. I have a whole fermentation crock back there. It's behind me. Get my hand over there. There. I have a whole fermentation crock just for making kimchi. And you can do it in an ongi. It's fine to do in mason jars as well. Like I said, if it can go in a mason jar, I'm all for it. What I love about kimchi is, one, the process of making it teaches you a lot about cooking and the properties of different foods. Why you need to make a good kimchi paste with rice flour. Why do you need to have these certain vegetables? Why must you have the gochujang and the gochugaru? Why do you need fish sauce and Korean pear in there? I mean, I guess you can use apple instead of Korean pear. Don't use Korean pear if you're going to make your own kimchi. But all of those ingredients together with this kimchi, this is cabbage kimchi, put all of that together in the right amounts and you have a beautiful ingredient. It can be eaten on its own. It's a great little snack. It's usually done as a banchan, a side dish with a meal, but you can also turn this into a meal on its own using one of those dry goods we highlighted last week. You can make a pancake out of this stuff, a savory pancake. I love a kimchi pancake. That caramelization on kimchi, it's something different and you really need to experience in your life. You can also use this as an ingredient in soups and stews. It's great if you're making like a little bulgogi wrap, throw some kimchi on there. Oh, it's great. So highly recommend that. And another type of kimchi I have here, I don't know if you can see this one as well. This is radish kimchi, Korean radish. You can also use daikon radish for this. It's that long radish that's white at one end and green on the other. This makes a really good kimchi as well. And you can use it many of the ways that you use your cabbage kimchi. So it's not just a great standalone food on its own. It's a great ingredient into other things. And if you're just looking for that extra bit of spice, it has it as well. And if you make it yourself, you can control the spice level. I've had mild kimchi before. It was different. I prefer it a little bit on the spicy side. And when it's well fermented, I mean, it just feels good. When you eat it, you know that you're doing something good for your body when you're eating these types of foods. So again, yeah, it's a whole thing, but highly worth it. And you don't have to make it. Just like with the soybean paste and the hot pepper paste, these come pre-made. You can go to any Asian grocery store and find kimchi in jars as big as me. Honestly, I prefer it homemade because I have control over the ingredients and I can get it exactly to the flavor that suits my palate. So go out, pick you up some kimchi, and if it's not something you've had before, go to a Korean restaurant and try it alongside a main dish and other side dishes and pick around and see what you like, and you'll be introduced to other fermented foods. There's lots of different types of kimchi out there. These are just the two that I favor and make the most at home and have done me the most good health-wise. The last fermented food I want to mention today is miso. Let me slide these over in front of me. I have to keep these in plastic bags in the fridge, in their bags, because miso paste will go everywhere. I have two types of miso paste that I use. You know what? I'm just gonna keep them in the bags because I'm not trying to make a mess on my countertop. I like a clean kitchen. Two types of miso. They're clear bags, you can see them. I have red miso and awase miso, light miso. They have different applications. The red miso or the darker miso, this one is used in a lot of like active cooking. You know, it's good, you know, marinating with things like salmon and other types of fish. Of course, miso soup. But when I make miso soup, I have found that I need a combination of the light miso and the dark miso to get the flavor that I want, because the dark miso to my palate is like way saltier than the light miso. It's not unlike the fermented soybean paste. It's a little bit different of a process in Japan to make miso, and it has a very distinct flavor. You can't take this Korean soybean paste and throw it in some water with some kombu and get the exact same flavor as miso. Even though they are fermented from the same bean, it's a different type of soybean grown in a different region with a different fermenting process, so you're going to get a different result. I love to do like a miso glazed salmon. You take a little bit of miso, mix it, and maybe like some oyster sauce or even just water, glaze it over when you're cooking. Wonderful. And again, like the soybean paste, it packs an umami punch. You need this much. It is real easy to overflavor with miso or any type of fermented soybean-ish paste because it's concentrated flavor. It's almost, think of it as a bouillon cube, but more intense. And because they've boiled down to the essence of these flavors, that's what makes them so intense. So be careful with them if you choose to use these ingredients. I love them. They last a long time. I don't feel like I'm wasting money when I buy stuff like this because I know if it's fermented, I'm going to get to keep it for a while. Now, how long depends on the type of fermented food you have. Some fermented foods last for months. Others last for weeks. It just depends on what it is. So you need to read labels. And if you can't read labels, because it's written in another language, have no fear. We live in the age of the smartphone. Get that Google Translate out and find out what is on the back of that bag to make sure that you know the dates and everything that goes with that. So this was a shorter food video today because next time I'm going to talk to you about noodles. I love noodles, and I have so many kinds of noodles in this house. So we're going to continue this ingredient series, and eventually, once I resolve my current issues, we will get into actually making some recipes. So I don't really have an outro, but I do hope you will like, comment, subscribe, and tell me about your favorite Asian ingredients or fermented foods down in the comments. Hope to see you there.